Well, all right. Here we go. This is going to be fun. Joe Rogan, a stand-up comedian. For more than 20 years, Joe Rogan has sold out theaters internationally, with London's Guardian newspaper praising him as one of the most complex and exciting stand-ups working in America today. That is high praise. His 4th-hour-long special, Joe Rogan Rocky Mountain High, premiered on Comedy Central November 21, 2014, and you may get it as a digital video or audio download. He is host of the Joe Rogan Experience, featuring long-form conversation, God bless him for that, with guests, that is one of the most popular podcasts online. Since 2002, he has provided color commentary for the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, I'll have questions about that on pay-per-view, Spike Television, and now on Fox. So coming up in just a moment, somebody I know you're waiting for, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, welcome to Midnight in the Desert.
Thank you for having me on, sir. It's a huge honor.
No, it's my honor. I've been a fan of yours. I guess we spoke briefly before the show, and well, I guess we've been fans of each other for a while.
Yeah, well, when I used to drive home from the Comedy Store late at night, you kept me company many a night. I've been a huge fan of your show and you for a long time. So for me, this is just a huge treat.
Well, thank you. All right, so you did a big show, Fear Factor. You did it for a long time. I think there were 6 seasons of it, right?
Yeah.
And now you're doing a podcast. I was on national radio everywhere. Now I'm doing a podcast. Pretty cool.
Well, it's a beautiful time for broadcasting in that sense, that anybody can put something out online. You don't have to have a network. You don't have to have anything other than an internet connection and some place that's willing to host it. I mean, it's really incredible times. And because of that, I think we're getting like really diverse shows. We're getting all these different people that, like myself, that probably would have never done an actual radio show, who are enjoying the freedom that the internet provides.
I agree, Joe. Where do you think this means broadcasting is going? I mean, there's these giant radio networks, even television. I think AT&T just ate DirecTV, and now you can see all DirecTV on AT&T.
Wow. Well, I think the really big networks, what they're good for is high-budget things like Game of Thrones or something along those lines that requires millions of dollars in special effects. But for something like what you do or something like what I do, all you really need is a couple of tech people to run things and get things online, and that's it. You don't need giant networks. You don't need interference, producers, people that are running things that I'm sure you don't care about, like demographics and all that jazz.
Yes, sir.
All that unnecessary stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's better. I think it's better this way.
I agree. All right, I've got to ask a little bit about Fear Factor because I was like a total fan. In fact, here's a question for you. I was used to seeing it every week, and then suddenly there were some weird splits where Fear Factor wouldn't be on for a long time, and then there'd be an episode and it wouldn't be on again for a long time. Do you remember that?
I don't know what that was about. It was probably just they had saved a few episodes, and they do weird stuff with ratings. Ratings, they're always trying to manipulate things during sweeps, and I never really understood how that all that stuff works.
What was it like? Everybody was going to want me to ask this. For you to watch these poor people facing, like Central American biting, scratching, eating, furry, gushy things. Carrying them with their mouth and then drinking a blender full of them or something like that. How was that?
It was as bizarre for me being there, being the host of it, as it was for anybody to watch it. 90% of the time I would show up at work and I'd be just shaking my head going, I can't believe this is a real show. It was very, very strange. As a matter of fact, the reason why I was willing to do it in the first place was because I was convinced that it was going to be something that was only on the air for a couple episodes, and then I would have material to make fun of. I just thought it was something completely ridiculous. I'm like, there's no way this is going to stay on television. And then 148 episodes later.
Yeah, that's right. Which brings me to this. With those kinds of shows, you kind of have to keep topping yourself a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Did it get to the point where you wondered if people would live through the next episode?
Well, it didn't the first time around, but the second time around, we did it again for 7 more episodes, I think it was, in 2011, I believe it was.
Right.
And then I was worried, because there were some episodes that we did where they really kept upping the ante further and further, and there was a few accidents where nobody got hurt, nothing serious, but it was like, wow, this is more risky than we ever did before, and I always felt like we got lucky the first time around. Especially, there was a few stunts, like they had to ride bulls, and I'm like, that is just a risk. You're just rolling the dice.
Oh, yeah.
And anything can happen when you have a bull involved, as we've seen. I don't know if you've paid attention to the running of the bulls. It's one of the deadliest years ever. 11 people were killed in the running of the bulls this year.
Yeah, I know, but I think that's sort of the earth evening things out. These people don't belong running in front of bulls anyway.
I'm with you 100%.
Kind of a cleansing. All right, so now you have this podcast, and I've heard that you do some paranormal occasionally. You do sort of everything, right?
Yeah, well, I've done quite a bit of paranormal, and I did quite a bit I did a sci-fi show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything,
right?
Where I, met with a lot of people that were UFO fanatics and Bigfoot people and a lot of strange stuff. And one of the things that I found very unfortunate, because I've been a huge fan of I just love the idea of UFOs, even if it's not real. Love the idea of Bigfoot. I love the possibility of uncovering some massive mystery like that, of human beings uncovering something like that.
Yeah, of course.
But what I found doing the show that I didn't like was that there was a lot of what I was dealing with more than actual facts was psychology. And you get into the psychology of people that believe in things that don't necessarily make sense, where they're not looking at it objectively. Instead, they're like choosing to only look at certain information, or only look at certain data, and don't look at anything that conflicts with that.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I know. It's a problem. It is a problem in ufology and all over the paranormal. But still, I'm one of those people who I want to believe there is something more. There has to be something more, I think. And
I definitely want to.
And if there isn't something more, then I guess we won't care.
Yeah. I mean, wanting to believe is critical. I mean, it's like, of course, who wouldn't want a UFO to fly right over the White House lawn and everyone to watch it on television? I think it would be a huge, unique bonding experience for mankind if we really, really were visited. It's like that famous Ronald Reagan speech during the Cold War,
sure.
How quickly we would abandon our differences with the Soviet Union if we were faced with a threat from another world.
And we would, too.
Oh, immediately. Right away, it would snap things into perspective. I think the idea of this whole entire planet as being one community would really come into focus if we really experienced something from another planet, a life form, a super intelligent life form, especially if we felt threatened by them.
Well, we are a warrior-like people, and I speak of Americans when I say that. And I suppose as a world, we're a warrior-like people, so it figures we'd have to have a war to bring us together.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. It's unfortunate, but true.
All right. Do you do politics on your show at all?
Well, I do a little, but, quite honestly, the game is so rigged. It's such a hustle.
Well, it normally is. And the only thing I want to ask you is your view on Trump.
Well, I like people that stir things up. I loved Ross Perot back when he was running for president, because there was a guy that had a ton of money and really didn't need the establishment anymore. And I think there's, in some ways, you get that with Trump, and you get a guy who's going to be brutally honest about things, but you also get a guy talking about Mexicans being rapists and saying a lot of crazy stuff that people like. Well, he's in many ways like a lot of really wealthy, successful people. He's a buffoon, because he's this guy with this tremendous ego, because he's accomplished so much. And one of the ways he's accomplished it is by having this sort of bulldog determination and plow through no matter what. And that leads him to think that he can be the king of the world. And that's where he's at right now, pushing forward and trying to become president. And he's ahead in all the polls. by a large margin.
Right, like over double, I think, the next guy. So, yeah. Oh.
It's early. It's an early game, and we all know that sometimes it's not. It's like running a marathon. You know, you see a guy sprint right out the gate, running full blast.
Sure.
Like, well, how long can that guy keep that up?
Yeah.
Most of the time, they can't.
That's right. All right, let's switch completely subjects because I'm really interested in this one. Okay. You apparently have had experiences. Did you know Terrence McKenna?
I didn't know Terrence, but I do know his brother Dennis. I've had his brother Dennis on my show a few times, but I was hugely influenced by Terrence's appearances on your show, in fact.
Right.
There's some MP3s floating around of him live from Hawaii, from the Big Island, on a broadband spectrum radio signal.
That's right.
Fascinating podcast radio show from back in the day. And I've listened to it many times.
What an amazing man he was. And I, too, have, well, of course, I interviewed Terrence, and then I'm going to interview Dennis again. I've done it before. So I guess the big question is your experience, if any, with DMT.
I've had quite a few. And, in fact, I have a DMT tattoo on my left arm, because of one of them that I had was so profound that I just felt the need to mark it on my body because it was such an insane experience.
That profound. Okay, can you actually explain that experience?
It's very difficult to explain because it's the idea of DMT, when you hear about it from someone who's never experienced it, or rather when you try to explain it to someone who's never experienced it, it sounds like you're seeing some things that aren't there. Oh, well, you're into hallucinating, you're into escape from reality. When you get into the reality of what the drug is, it's a human neurotransmitter that exists in your own body. Your lungs make it, your liver makes it, your brain makes it,
right.
The pineal gland creates it, and it's the most intense psychedelic drug known to man. And what's even more bizarre, and I'm sure you know this, but maybe some people listening don't, it's in thousands of different plants. It's all over the world. It's in almost every ecosystem ever observed. And they don't know why. It's a very bizarre and mysterious psychedelic drug that is also a massive part of the world that we live in. And when you take it, you experience something that knows everything, or at least appears to. They communicate with you in some sort of strange language. There's a lot of repeated themes. There's telepathic communication. There's some sort of way of expressing to you truth in some undeniable form, but with love and beauty and in impossible geometric patterns that are just fractal and floating through the air all around you. What it feels like is you in the presence of a higher power. It feels like what I would imagine it would be to make contact with some sort of a divine entity. And I think that when you look at all these different UFO abduction experiences that people have had that take place in the middle of the night, where you're in heavy REM sleep, where many people believe the endogenous dumps of DMT are going on through the brain. Many people believe that it's responsible for dreaming. And I say believe because there's a lot of good work being done right now on this by Dr. Rick Strassman, his Cottonwood Research Foundation, and you can learn a lot more about the technical aspects of it from guys like him and from Dennis McKenna. But what it feels like when you're there is like you're communicating with God. And that's really what it feels like. All
right, for a lot of the audience that doesn't know, there are other hallucinogens, of course, for example, LSD, which was a very different and long experience, and mushrooms and so forth. But DMT is kind of in a different class, isn't it? It's rather short in duration?
Yeah, very, very short. When you're smoking it, which is the way most people get it, it lasts about 15 minutes. And it's one of the reasons they call it the businessman's high. But it's really odd that they call it that because it's the last thing you'd want to do after you do it is do any kind of business.
Right.
But it's extremely transient. Your body gets rid of it and brings you back to baseline inside of 15, 20 minutes.
Any danger?
I think anytime you're dealing with something so mind-bogglingly extraordinary, there's the possibility that people with weak hearts, people that don't have the steadiest nerves, or perhaps maybe they don't have the best grip on reality. I think anybody that has real psychological problems should probably avoid psychedelic drugs until they've reached some form of stability in their life anyway.
Have you ever had a flashback?
I've never had a flashback to like where I fully went into it,
right.
but I've gotten like to the door and peeked in, and it's disturbing. It's disturbing
it is
so readily available.
It is, especially at dinner, with several people.
Yeah, it just gives you that little nervous thing. Does anybody know what just happened to me? But really, it seems to be the flashbacks that a lot of people have. They have when they're dreaming. Many people who have done it, I've only had, like I said, like a peek through the door. But many people who have done DMT have had dreams where they smoke it and then fully immersed into the DMT realm again.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said you felt like you were in touch with a higher power. The high power? I mean, do you think that, I don't know, God is a word we throw around, but, is that what you're talking about?
Well, it would be pretty arrogant if I assumed it was the higher power, because I think being a lower thing like humans, I mean, obviously the highest that we know of, but we can conceive of something eventually being more evolved, more grand, bigger than us. And I think whatever this is, it's that. If it's is it the higher? Well, it's very possible that this experience is merely the tip of the iceberg, and there's something below that that's even more mind-boggling, even more profound. It doesn't. While you're doing it, it feels so titanically alien that nothing could be any crazier. But I think that could very well just be a perception issue, a reference issue, the fact that we don't really have a lot of experiences to compare it to that are that crazy. But it could just be the beginning. And that's one of the things that a lot of people who get heavily into psychedelics, and Terrence talked about this quite a bit, that they always want to see further. They always want to go deeper, because they always have this feeling that there's something, like you take 5 grams, you want to try 7. You take 7, you want to try 10. And you want to go deeper and deeper into the world of mushrooms or the world of DMT or ayahuasca or any of the known psychedelics. I think that's one of the things that happens to people that are frequent travelers, is they want this experience. They feel like maybe there's more to it, that even as crazy and as bizarre and alien and strange and awe-inspiring as it is, it may just be the beginning of this infinite spectrum of possibility.
Would you say that your experience with DMT has changed your day-to-day life in any way?
Yeah, I think it's changed me. I think what we are is how we've interpreted all of our experiences, how we've interpreted our interactions with people, our time on this planet. When something comes along that just throws a monkey wrench into the gears and shows you something that not only did you never imagine, but feels like you could never have possibly imagined without this experience, that now your point of reference has changed dramatically. Now, instead of having this small spectrum of possibilities, you have this possibility that's so far out to the left or to the right that you can't see the end of it. And you never thought that was possible until you have that experience. And I think that profoundly changes you as a person, because we are really just an accumulation of our experiences, our interpretations of those experiences, and what we've, how we've learned from them and how we apply them to our lives. And the times that I've done DMT, I've always walked out of it feeling like there at least has the potential from this for me to be a better person.
Mm-hmm. You said that you heard different languages from, I guess, entities or whatever. Did you actually see something, and could you detect that it was a human language or non-human?
Well, the language seems to be, you seem to hear it telepathically more than anything. And there's a lot of, repeating themes. Like you hear, there's a lot of people say, you hear, look at this. I've heard that. I've heard it. And I've heard a lot of other people say the same thing. They show you different insane things. I remember one time I did it, I was literally crying because they kept saying, look at this, and they would show me something insanely beautiful. And then it was I have little kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And one of the things that my 5-year-old says, she'll say things that they're really cute and adorable, like, I love you 1,500,000, 1,500,000, billion, zillion, infinity times a million times. Numbers that aren't real. Well, that happened in my DMT experience. One of the first ones I ever did. They would sing a little song like, I love you 600,500,000, 500 million times. And then it would go, look at this. And then every time I go, look at this, it would show you something infinitely more beautiful than what you just saw. And then it would keep going on and on and on until tears were rolling down my face. I think a lot of that, it's a sound. I mean, you're understanding what they're saying, you're understanding words, but I'm not exactly sure you're hearing it more than you're hearing it in your mind. And it's one of the reasons why I connect it to the UFO abduction experience, because one of the things that you hear from these people that have had these classic UFO abduction scenarios is telepathic communication, where there's words in their mind, and they're not exactly sure if they're hearing them or if they're being transmitted somehow directly to their consciousness. And it kind of feels like that when you're doing DMT.
Wow. Is there any advice that you would give as a big listening audience out there, and they're listening going, DMT, is this something I want to try?
Only you can answer that. I really think that that's a personal thing, and I've told people they should do it before, but it's probably irresponsible of me. Really, I think everybody's got their own psychological makeup, and everybody's got their own path in this life. And if it's something that you're compelled to try, there's a lot of people that believe, and I've heard this from many people that have done it, that DMT finds you. You don't find DMT. You might go looking for it, but really it finds you and decides whether or not you should do it. That doesn't necessarily make sense to me, and it sounds like an adorable thing to say. It sounds cute, like profound, some sort of strange way.
Is it really separate from ayahuasca, from anything else? Is DMT unto itself one thing?
That's a good question that someone else should probably answer. Dennis would probably be better at that, because I've never done ayahuasca. I've only done the condensed version of it. The difference for folks at home that are listening that don't know, ayahuasca is like a slow-release DMT, and it was created by the indigenous Amazon people because they don't have chemistry labs. They can't synthesize DMT. They can't extract it from these plants the way they do it in labs. So what they do is they use the root of one plant and the leaves of another plant. So one plant contains the DMT, and the other contains an MAO inhibitor, a natural MAO inhibitor. And MAO is monoamine oxidase. And what that is something that your gut produces that breaks down DMT when you eat it. That's why if you eat like Phalaris grass or something that's rich in DMT, you don't get high from it. The reason being this monoamine oxidase breaks it down inside your body. Well, these ingenious people thousands of years ago figured out how to combine these two plants. It's a really complicated process where they brew it up, and what they did is they created a slow-release DMT trip. And it's not from the people, and again, I haven't had this experience, so I'm just relaying from people that have. It's not as intense, it's the DMT flash that you get when you smoke it. You rarely reach that state, but you have this profound long-term experience that instead of taking 15 minutes, takes several hours.
Wow. All right, let's move on to the totality of how do you feel about, we're legalizing marijuana now. Here in my state, Nevada, we've got medical marijuana at last. Other states are completely legalizing it. Where is it going in America eventually with drugs? I mean, our jails are full of people for drug violations of one sort or another. What do you think?
Well, locking people up for experimenting with their consciousness is criminal. I really think that. And it's very contradictory when you look at all the drugs that are legal. The really intense, powerful drugs that are easy to get. Anybody who knows, if you ever had a back injury, you can get OxyContin or all sorts of different painkillers like that. It's not hard to get. All you have to do is have a legit reason to have them. I had this guy, Chris Bell, on my podcast who made the documentary Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Right.
It was a steroid documentary, and he injured himself. He had a hip surgery and got hooked on OxyContins. He's got a new prescription out called Prescription Thugs. It's sort of dealing with the prescription drug business. So there's plenty of drugs that perturb our consciousness. We can walk into any liquor store or any grocery store and buy enough booze to kill ourselves. So it's not that anyone's protecting you from anything. What it is we have sanctioned drugs, and these sanctioned drugs, they get a lot of money from them, and then there's a lot of tax revenue that come out of it, and there's also a lot of people that have a vested interest in continuing to keep those drugs legal.
All right, hold it right there. We'll be right back.
For Dark Matter News, I'm Leo Ashcraft, Pitcher, Oklahoma. It's a ghost town and former city in Ottawa County, Oklahoma. formerly a major national center of lead and zinc mining at the heart of the tri-state mining district. Over a century of unrestricted subsurface excavation dangerously undermined most of Pitcherstown buildings and left giant piles of toxic metal-contaminated mine tailings heaped throughout the area. The discovery of the cave-in risks, groundwater contamination, and health effects associated with the chat piles and subsurface shafts, particularly an alarming 1996 study which showed lead poisoning in 34% of the children in Pitcher. This eventually prompted a mandatory evacuation and buyout of the entire township by the state of Oklahoma and the incorporation of the town, along with the similarly contaminated satellite towns of Treese and Cardin. An F4 tornado, which destroyed or damaged 150 homes in May 2008, accelerated the exodus. The town ceased official operations on September 1st, 2009.
Google knows what you did last summer. Now it shows it to you on Google Maps. Today, the Google Maps team launched a feature called Your Timeline. That is about where you've already been. It's not a social feature, as you're the only one who sees it. But it's a reminder of how much data Google has on all of us if we leave all of our defaults on. If you Google Photos, your pictures will appear along with the places you've stopped along the way. A Kansas woman said she stepped outside with her dog and noticed something unusual in the sky. The moon and the stars were gone. She said everyone came out of their house and were all pointing at the sky, and what they saw covering the sky was disturbing. The thing was dead silent, they said, massive, so big, so huge. But the sighting didn't last long, and it took off with the blink of an eye and no noise. She said it wasn't round like a saucer, it was kind of like an arrowhead shape. The entire bottom of it was pitch black until it took off, and then it was multicolored lights at the bottom. As the object moved away, the woman's daughter became terrified. A former state trooper from Washington said that he is currently in contact with several Bigfoot creatures and that he feeds them food regularly. The man who provided a name but chose to remain anonymous said that the encounters have been happening since 2009 in a remote area in the North Cascades. He said sometimes it's 5 to 10 minutes, other times they stay for hours. He says he leaves them apples, carrots, beef jerky, cookies, and candy bars. The man says he was looking for an old mine in the mountains the first time he came across the alleged beings in 2009. After leaving the food out there for him, he says they seem to have started following him and getting closer. He says he's been as close as 20 feet to some of them. He reports that he was so close to them that he was able to catch some of their language on 2 different occasions. He said it sounded like Native American and an Asian mix. The creatures reportedly stand between 6 and 7 feet tall and probably weigh in at about 500 pounds, females being a little lighter. He describes them as having a human face, some with dark hair, others red or brown, probably about 3 to 4 inches long, adding that the females had small breasts. He claims he's not the only one to have seen the creatures in the area. Numerous people have also purportedly seen them while accompanying the man. The former state trooper says the creatures have never presented a threat to him and that he leaves them alone and he's not interested in hunting them or gathering physical evidence. Florida resident John Bird last year claimed to feed Bigfoot potatoes and plantains on a regular basis. In the spring of 1982, a soldier training at Fort Leonard Wood Army Base in Missouri claimed to have spotted a 7-foot-tall creature with brown hair that resembles the former state trooper's alleged sighting. Portions on the United States side of the range are part of the North Cascades National Park. There were reports revealing the intentions of the U.S. Army to annex part of the region as a helicopter training area, drawing criticism from the Forest Service employees for environmental ethics. I'm Leo Ashcraft. This has been Dark Matter News.
Hey, Joe, what's your opinion of French dressing?
French dressing?
French dressing.
It's
Ranch,
okay.
ranch dressing.
Oh, ranch dressing.
Yeah, ranch dressing. There's something there.
Yeah, that's my friend Joey Diaz has he's got a quote that you can't really say on this radio show.
Okay.
But it's either blue cheese with wings or then something explicit. But that's Joey Diaz. If you don't know who he is, he's the funniest person, I believe, the funniest person that's ever lived.
When you do a podcast show, do you need somebody to bounce off of? I mean, do you do it absolutely by yourself, or do you have somebody?
No. I almost never do it by myself. I've done a few in the early days by myself, but I either do them with just a bunch of different guests, or I do it with my occasional co-host, Brian Redband. I did one of them today with him, who's a longtime friend of mine. And we do one every week or so. We just go over crazy stories in the internet.
Yeah, you really need somebody. If you're going to do comedy, you really need somebody there, don't you?
Yeah, but they're not always comedy. See, my podcast is very confusing. Like, so it's in the comedy section, but sometimes I'm talking to professors. Tomorrow I'm talking to Jeff Nowitzki, who is the guy who busted Lance Armstrong.
Wow.
And we're gonna talk all about the different performance-enhancing drugs they use in the Tour de France and how they avoid getting caught, and what's going on right now in professional sports where they test and how they get around these things. He's the guy that was hired by the UFC recently to clean up the sport. The UFC has quite an image issue when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs. Mixed martial arts in general does. There's just so much on the line for these guys that a lot of them are willing to take chances with illegal substances. And we're going to discuss that tomorrow. So
is the UFC real?
Oh, it's 100% real. Yeah,
100% real, huh?
100%.
Whereas regular wrestling.
Well, have you ever watched the UFC?
A couple of times, yeah.
Well, you're up in Pahrump, right? You're
right.
up in. If you ever want to come down, there's a big event that's going on September 4th. I would love to have you come down and introduce you to the world of the UFC. And if you saw it live, you would not for a second think that there's anything fake going on.
You know what some of the rep of regular wrestling was. I mean, so.
Well, of course, regular wrestling is entertainment. It's a choreographed entertainment show, no different than a play. And a lot of people love it. It's not my cup of tea, but a lot of people really enjoy it because it's fun, it's crazy, and it's wild. The UFC is very different. It's a much more primal experience, and it is absolutely 100% non-scripted and real.
So, kind of like Fear Factor. in some ways.
Fear Factor was scripted in the sense of we knew what the stunts would be, but as far as the reactions, yes, exactly.
All right, staying or extending from DMT, I understand that you have been, this really interests me, Joe, you experiment with sensory deprivation chambers. True?
Yes, I have one in my house. I have one in my basement, and I have been a big fan of them. I first got one in 2002. I got my first one, and I'd heard about them years before originally from that Altered States movie.
Right.
That was where I was first introduced to him, and then I got into John Lilly's books. I read some of his stuff on them, and then I realized that Altered States movie was actually based, a lot of it was based on him. The crazy. If you don't know who Lilly is, John Lilly was the guy who invented the sensory deprivation tank, and he was a pioneer in interspecies communication. He would do all these experiments on dolphins and trying to communicate with dolphins. And one of the things he used to do is he used to take LSD and set up a sensory deprivation tank near dolphins and try to communicate with them.
Wow.
Yeah, he was out there.
All right, so describe to me the sensory tank experience. Is it warm water? Is it cool?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, the water is the same temperature as the surface of your skin, which is about 93.5 degrees. There's, in my tank, I have a tank from the Float Lab in Venice, which is, there's a guy named Crash who runs the Float Lab, who really, when the tanks were very unpopular, when no one knew about them, right now their experience is tremendous renaissance, and I'm very happy that I'm a part of that, and Crash is a part of that too, because he's the guy who really innovated and took tanks to this incredible level of sophistication that they have now. And he is the one who designed the one that I have in my basement. And it has 1,000 pounds of Epsom salts in this water. And the water is about a foot deep. And you just get in the tank, and because there's so much salt, you float. And because the water is the same temperature as your skin,
right.
Once you sit in it for a minute and you relax and stop moving, you can't really differentiate between where the water is and where the air is. It all feels like one thing. It feels like you're flying. And you have this weird experience, this weird sensation of flying through space. Have you not done it?
No, I haven't done it.
Ever
since Altered States, I've wanted to try it.
Please come to California as my guest. I'll bring you to the Float Lab. We'll introduce you to Crash, because he's a trip in and of himself, and get you in one of these tanks. It's amazing. And it's very relaxing, too. It's very therapeutic for your muscles. It's great for your body because it gives you this feeling of weightlessness, and it relieves all the tension in your muscles. And it's also a great way for your body to absorb magnesium, because the Epsom salts contain magnesium, and it's absorbed through the skin. So it's actually really good for you, as well as being relaxing. And in certain situations, you can experience some pretty intense psychedelic experiences.
That's what I was going to ask. So altered states and maybe even more altered states.
Yeah, well, some people like to. I personally am a big fan of consuming cannabis and then getting in there, especially eating it. But some people like to do it with all kinds of different stuff, mushrooms. Lily was a big fan of ketamine. He used to take ketamine and then climb into the tank.
That's another hard hit, boy. Ketamine.
Yeah, that's a little beyond my reach. That's a spooky one. But the idea being is that when the mind has no internal or was no external information coming at it,
it creates.
Yes, it creates. And it also, because it's no longer processing all the data like your balance and social cues and looking at people and just touching and feeling things and gauging your distance, because you can't see anything, you can't hear anything, you don't feel anything, your body's free and your mind has an incredible amount of resources that it usually doesn't have. The way I always describe it to people is that if you and I were having a conversation but next to us there was a guy working a jackhammer, it would be very hard to keep the conversation, very hard to focus.
Absolutely.
Well,
sure.
But life is kind of a jackhammer. Life is constantly giving you information just from the sensation of the ground under your feet, the sensation of the clothes on your body.
Especially if you're in the business we are, it's constant.
It is constant, and it's hard to just let it all go. And for me personally, the way my body and mind work, I find the tank to be almost irreplaceable. It's one of the most important things that I've ever experienced as far as like just being able to unwind and think about stuff and have a perspective. And I've come to so many conclusions while I've been in there, made so many decisions that I might not have made while I was in there, and it just sort of guides me in a weird way.
So, good decisions.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've ever made a bad decision in the tank. As weird as that sounds.
I've made a lot of them in the shower. So,
yeah, me too, like singing.
All right, a couple of calls. Skype, you're on with Joe Rogan. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine. Go ahead.
I wanted to say, I don't know if Joe remembers me. I was actually a contestant on Fear Factor.
Whoa.
I believe it was season 2.
What season were you on? Do you know?
Season 2.
Season 2. Do you remember what you had to do? Of course you probably do.
Oh, yeah, I had to, I believe it was an elk's penis.
Oh, okay. So we were in the park? Yeah, that was Griffith Park, is that what it was?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. What's your name, man?
Oh, my name's Dwight.
Okay, Dwight, what's going on, dude?
Oh, not a lot, man. I catch you all the time when you're on UFC, and I especially loved when you were on Chappelle's show and you did the parody of Fear Factor.
That's too bad. That's all right. I took care of it. I have a button for that. Kansas.
I couldn't remember his name. I was like, that's...
Yeah,
I
strange.
remember he's not that good, but...
Yeah. Kansas City, you're on with Joe. Hi. Hello.
Oh, hey, is that me?
Yes, you.
Oh, hey, I just wanted to ask Joe, I know this is not a sports show, but he was so excited when Rousey won. What was that like to be there when that happened?
Oh, when Ronda Rousey won in Brazil a couple weeks ago, it was incredible. I felt like it was a historical event as much as it was a fight. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, you know, it was a mismatch and the girl wasn't as good as she was. And I think that's all very fair and true. But I think that what she represents right now is something wholly unique, this incredibly dominant female combat sports athlete. And I just think what she's been able to accomplish in just a short amount of time as far as raising the public's perception, I felt like I was there for history. I think there's guys that tell their kids, hey, I was there when Muhammad Ali beat Sonny Liston. And it kind of felt like that to me, like that kind of thing. Like you were there when something historical happened.
Oh, it was so incredible, yeah. I wonder what she's going to do next.
She's going to keep fighting, I'm sure, for a little while. But I imagine with all the lucrative movie offers that she's getting, when she feels like she's accomplished enough, she'll move on and just do whatever she wants to do.
Joe, have you seen a new TV show, actually not so new, 3-4 seasons now, Naked and Afraid?
Yes, yeah, I have seen it.
That thing is wild. I wonder how far so-called reality TV is going to go. I mean, you take somebody completely naked, a man and woman, throw them in the middle of Borneo,
yeah,
something bad's going to happen.
Well, it's certainly dangerous. I don't know how much they monitor them. I mean, it's hard when it's Naked and Afraid doesn't mean Naked, Afraid, and Alone. So I don't know how many people are there watching them while this goes on, and what kind of a medical crew they have standing by. I'm not sure. So.
Well, they do. They've got a producer, and then they've got a little medical crew. But yeah, dangerous.
Oh, definitely. But bizarre too. Why are we doing this? Like, why are we exposing people to this? Like, what is it about these silly shows that makes us so excited? And also, it's a great wake-up call for people when you realize how vulnerable you actually are out alone in the woods and how difficult it is to survive.
With no shoes. I mean, imagine no shoes, and you're walking on these. Oh God, it's awful.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So, how much further can reality TV go?
It's a good question. I mean, when we were on Fear Factor, I used to joke around and say we're about 3 seasons away from The Running Man. But we might have already passed that with something like Naked and Afraid. I mean, we might someday see something perhaps like from another country where we're seeing some sort of deadliest game sort of a thing where people are hunting people. That's entirely possible.
Well, they've made movies about it.
Yeah, I mean, they have these team fighting sports in Russia now, where they'll have like 5 people fight 5 people inside a cage.
Right.
It's like, and they're 2-on-1. And it's crazy. It's horrible to watch, but what they're doing is they're taking things like people tend to do to the most extreme place.
Sure. West Virginia, you're on with Joe. Hi.
Good morning, Art Bell.
How you doing?
I am very, very, very happy. Gosh, did I just meet Paul McCartney by getting on the air with Art Bell?
Well,
I am so amazed. Anyway, on to business. Our earthquakes stuff in Seattle. I'm in Seattle. Brian from Seattle is my name. I just recently moved to a different part of Seattle, so I had to
must
change.
be a hard name.
I had to
Brian
change.
from Seattle.
Yeah, BFS.
Is the from,
BFS?
Yes. Is the from Seattle part one word or two?
BFS. Anyway, on to the issue at hand.
Yes.
There's this guy on Public Access, Channel 29 in Seattle, doing a show about Earth changes.
Really?
Yeah, it's amazing. And he mentions you all the time.
Does he?
He says, tune in to, and he got it wrong, because he said Como.
Well, I'm on Como.
I know, but not now. You're on KVI for 2 hours.
Well, I believe...
Did they change that again?
No, I don't think so. I think...
It's still the 2-hour thing on KVI.
And then Como is the most amazing thing. That's been going on now for... What do you figure? A better part of a year? Yeah.
I don't know, a year or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to business. Earth changes, and to me, what it comes down to is basically kind of a magnetic repulsion, I think.
Huh?
Magnetic repulsion of negative human energy that was planted really by an enemy, 6,000 years ago.
You're saying we are doing it?
Well, the snakes that live within us are doing it, I say.
Well,
as Gordon Michael Stallion says, as we treat each other.
I think we... thank you.
Treat each other so the earth treats us.
Yes.
So God judges us.
Yes, I don't rule that out. Thank you. The snakes within us. Arguably, there are more snakes within us now than there were. And I don't dismiss totally the concept that our behavior is affecting our environment. That's really a pretty good bet, isn't it? I don't know that I fully go for Earth is mother, Earth is alive, Earth is an entity, and so forth and so on, but I think there is a force to nature that tends to be corrective. And if there is an irritant, something that is tossing things utterly out of balance, eventually nature concocts a way to return balance. Now, it may be more cerebral than that. It may be more into the paranormal than that, but I don't go farther than that myself. I just think there is a natural balance to things. And when they get out of balance, eventually nature, in some manner, acts to correct that balance. I don't think that's an outrageous view at all. It doesn't quite embrace the Mother Earth is alive, folks. But it does not rule out a force of nature, and I believe that clearly exists. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, I got a question for you, Art.
All right.
What do you think about your competition, like Rush Limbaugh, Don Imus, Howard Stern, Mark and Brian, those various people?
For the most part, they're not competition.
Why not?
Well, because in order to be competitive, they've got to really be on at the same time.
Well, in a way, they're your competition. You know, they're like your.
Look, my attitude about talk radio is the more the merrier.
Exactly. Yeah.
I really feel that way. So I don't. You will not find, with an occasional exception. I mean, there have been a couple of them that have taken after me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't pay attention to what they're doing because I do a different kind of talk radio.
Yeah, yours is more like a mellow kind of thing.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes it's not so mellow. Sometimes they're big fights. But what I mean is, they spend, the people you named, excepting Howard perhaps, spend a lot of time on politics.
Yeah.
And I'll do politics when it's hot. But when it's not, there's other stuff, to do.
Yeah. Hey, Michael.
Hey, Michael, I guess. Listen, I promised, check this out. Doc Berry, liberal Doc Berry, down in Phoenix, sent me a fax today that says the following. Check this out. Dear Art, this morning's Arizona Republic, that's the big paper down there, had banner front page headlines in fully 1-inch type that said Chupacabra Mania sweeps Mexico. Included in the feature story was a 4-color map of Mexico. So, the Chupacabra was the banner headline in the Arizona Republic. All of a sudden, now what do you think about that? It's beginning to hit the mainstream press. East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Oh, hey, Art. This is John from Milwaukee. Let me turn off my radio.
Turn it off. That's right, John. First thing to do, everybody, turn it off before you begin to talk. And see, he must have his across the room.
Okay, we're good. Anyway, anything about that pieces of metal that was mailed to you?
No, I'm waiting for two things. One is a written report that tells us what Linda told us. We got the initial report. Maybe you didn't hear it?
No.
Oh, that's not good.
I know, John is bad.
The other is, so we'll get a written report soon, and metallurgy work is being done on it now, so we'll have that report shortly.
Okay, the reason I brought that up is, I think you said you don't think there would be any extra elements in the universe?
What I've said is, and I do generally agree, that the same elements are going to be found throughout the universe, yes.
Okay, well, I kind of disagree with that. I figure inanimate products would be probably more spread out than life itself.
Why? If there was a central... wait a minute, sir. There was a central origin to matter, and most scientists agree on the Big Bang Theory, then why would there not be a central content to that matter?
Well, I think we just missed some of the content. It's just like if you're panning for gold. Every time you put your pan in there, you don't always get gold, right?
Right.
Okay, well, I'm just saying maybe we missed that one element.
Yeah, sure. Yes, sir. It's thank you. It's possible, yes, of course, that Earth's creation did not contain all the elements of creation. Oh, yes, that's entirely possible. I'm just saying that as a general rule, if you follow the theory of the Big Bang, then generally you're going to find the same main elements, planet to planet, system to system. That's all. That's probably a good working hypothesis until somebody shows us it is wrong. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Let me turn off my radio.
Yes, by all means.
Okay. I just want to say I've been listening to you for 4 years.
4 years, huh?
Yeah. And this is my first time call.
Well, I'm happy to have you. Where are you?
Salt Lake City, Utah.
All right. KCNR.
Yeah, and I'm kind of nervous. So,
well, it'll pass.
Okay. I do enjoy Dreamland. very much.
Well, coming up this Sunday, Brad and Sherry Steiger.
And who are they?
Well, you don't know who Brad Steiger is?
Movie actor?
No, author. He's written over 200 books. One of the most recent was The Awful Thing in the Attic.
Never heard of it.
Oh, man. All right, well, then you'll enjoy it.
Okay, but other than that, I'm kind of tired of hearing about the Freeman.
Oh, yes.
And what about the alien hotline? I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I haven't done one of those in a long, long time, have I?
No, you haven't. So bring that back. Thank you.
All right, take
Bye-bye.
care. The alien hotline. Now, from time to time, we do strange things here, you will learn. And I used to open the alien hotline. Only aliens. Not illegal aliens. Not aliens from other countries, but, you know, them. And so I would open a line just for them. And you get some very unusual calls. Very unusual calls. And then a successor to that became the Immortal hotline. We got on this kick of people calling and faxing and writing letters and email saying they were immortal. And so I thought, let's open an immortal line. And we did. And people called claiming to be immortal. Now, I'm not sure which was more fun, the alien line or the immortal line. Hey, I wonder if we could do both. Aliens or immortals. Well, let me consider that. Maybe we will. Wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, I get a kick these days out of how some of the comedy shows portray Bob Dole.
Yeah, the poor guy.
And it's something about where he speaks of himself a lot. He'll say something to the effect of, Bob Dole's either going to go to the White House or go home or something.
That's right. It's always third person.
Yeah, and then these days when he's changing his clothes, he looks a little bit like he's doing a laundry commercial.
Well, what got to me was, much as I'd rather see Bob Dole as president than Clinton, Bob Dole the other day, one day he's out of the Senate, right?
Yeah.
Pulls his tie off. He's Mr. Casual, and he's claiming to be an outsider. I mean, look, I'm a pretty good conservative, but I laughed my butt off when I saw that. I mean, one day, folks, one day makes you an outsider.
And one other thing, you sound like him quite a bit. It would not take much for you to go say something, say Bob Dole, and when I hear you say that, I crack up laughing when I hear you mention his name.
Well, Art Bell would never do that.
So go ahead and do it. Bob Dole.
Bob Dole.
Bye.
Bob Dole. Bob Dole. Thank you. I like Bob Dole, don't get me wrong. I want to interview Bob Dole, as a matter of fact. In fact, I consider it, frankly, imperative. The American people have got to get to know Bob Dole. He took a step, at least in the positive direction, the other day when he resigned from the Senate. You know, he seemed quite human. But what Bob Dole really needs is a good, relaxed, you know, he can sit at home kind of interview on the telephone and just let loose. I'm really convinced of it. And if any of you are in contact with his headquarters, please urge him to come on the program. I have been in contact with his campaign, and they promise he will be on. I think if he's going to stand even a chance, he's got to do a lot of that. Just get down with the American people and talk to them. Let us know who he really is. He never comes through on TV. And I don't think he's going to. So to find out who Bob Dole really is, the man behind the sound bites and the witty humor, he's got a very dry, witty humor. You're just going to have to spend some time with him. That's the only thing I can think is that we've got to spend some time with the man to understand him. And that would really, really, really help. And that's in essence what I told his campaign people, and they agree. They definitely agree, and he may be ready for it soon. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hi.
Oh, hi. This is Barbie from Bellingham.
Hi.
I just wanted to make a comment about that guy from Seattle. That wasn't no earthquake that they had. It was a spaceship that crashed, and it was like.
Are you talking about the 5-point whatever it was?
Yeah, the earthquake.
You're trying to say that was a spaceship that crashed?
Sure, and it was Bigfoot got off of it.
Really? And you could only know that if you'd had intimate contact with Bigfoot, right?
No, but I also wanted to say, I never heard of that chupacabra.
Really?
Except for once. And
Really?
I was just told that it was just a vampire bat.
Oh, yeah?
And but I listen to you every night, so that's really interesting.
How does a vampire bat suck all the blood out of a goat?
I don't know. They don't.
Yeah, no, they don't. So,
No.
see, it's not that, and there are, it's not just 1 or 2 or 10, it's hundreds of animals. And I have seen endless pictures, video from
true,
Mexico.
Huh?
Yeah, it's
real.
true. There's really something out there.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
you
scary.
bet. And it wants you.
No, not me.
Yes, you.
No.
You know what I heard about it?
What?
I read this earlier today in a Mexican paper.
Mm-hmm.
It goes for giggles.
Well, I never laugh, so.
Have a good morning. Stay safe. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art?
Yes.
We're having this is Richard in Houston.
Yes.
We have a question in our office concerning Bigfoot.
All right.
We were wondering if you see more than one Bigfoot.
Would they be big feet?
Is it big feet or big footses?
I'm not sure. It might more properly be Bigfootses. But I would say big feet, wouldn't you?
Well, that's what I say.
As in a gaggle of big feet? A gaggle of big feet. Not a gaggle of Bigfoots. Well, maybe it would be a gaggle of Bigfoots. I don't know. Why do you ask me such a question?
We're just wondering.
All right, the answer is I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Goodbye. You see, now you can tell what kind of night it's going to be.
Yes, hi, this is Wendy in California.
Hi, Wendy.
And I have something to say about the chupacabra.
All right.
When I was going to college, I took a history class, and they told us when the Spanish were searching for gold.
Yes.
With the Mayans.
Yes.
There was a group of them that got caught in a cave in, under the city.
Sure.
And they found them, and they had all the blood sucked out of them, and the fangs were making marks on the bones, and they thought it was vampire bats. But as you said, the bats don't suck the blood.
No, they actually don't. And whatever this is doing that.
So I thought that might be like evidence from history that it's not new, that it could be.
It easily could. It could be something old, something modified. Who knows what it is? It was the banner headline in the Arizona Republic in Phoenix yesterday. For those who think it's not hitting the regular press, wrong-o, it is.
I saw a news story on television, and they showed a picture of the dead body they found that was supposedly drowned.
Yes.
And it was horrible.
Mm-hmm. I know it's real.
Yeah.
Keep the light on.
Thank you.
See you later. Yeah, keep the light on. East of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, where are you?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was hearing about that thing called the quickening. I've only been a listener for a few weeks. And something I had come up where I work might be similar to that.
Like what?
Well, I work with a large telecommunications company, and they have been implementing a bunch of artificial intelligence programs to take the place of people. And they've routed a bunch of the lab people down to Atlanta because they're having trouble there. The equipment grabs up all the memory and takes over, and they can't process calls. It kills them, kills the calls. I'm a little nervous.
Well, in other words, you're trying to suggest that a machine may be making decisions on its own?
It's actually getting consciousness, they think. best they can figure out. It's just,
okay, where is, no, this is fascinating. Where is this again, please?
Well, it's happened at several places. The lab guys that come from, what used to be AT&T, it's Lucent now. But they don't talk to us. I'm just a regular technician. They talk among themselves in the cafeteria.
You've heard the rumors, huh?
Yeah, they're trying like crazy to get this thing figured out before the Olympic Games come, and
that's a hell of a story.
That's one of the reasons why they're putting a big cellular network all around Atlanta, because they don't have these artificial intelligence things in the cellular system yet. But the regular phone system could just die dead in a doornail if this sucker, if it gets conscious and starts doing things on its own again. It's already killed a couple of systems in a couple other cities.
All right, sir. I appreciate the comment, believe me, and what you have raised is absolutely been a point of fascination for me forever. As we get faster and faster processors, as we get so much memory available, it is, in fact, I believe, possible one day that the processing speed, and I have no idea how far they've gone. I mean, they're beyond the craze. But one day, a machine may assume what we recognize as consciousness, which I believe is self-awareness and decision-making without input, without additional input. So I don't rule out such a thing as possible. At what speed, with what kind of storage would such a thing occur? I don't have the slightest idea. Could it already have occurred? Yes. Would the technicians tending such a machine have the you-know-what scared out of them? Yes, I would imagine so. And would they try to stop it? Yes, I would think so, because you want to be in command. Man wants to be in command of machines, not the other way around. On my alien immortal line, you're on the air. Is that it? You sound pretty weird to me. You are an alien, obviously. From what planet do you come? Why are you here? All right, we'll leave that one alone right there. I know there are machines that can do that voice. This was done to me about 2 years ago, and the first time someone did that to me, it scared the hell out of me. But now I've learned there are machines that can do that. That doesn't rule out the fact that it could have been real, but that was very well done, I must say. I want one of those machines. I said that then, and I still don't have one. I want one of those machines that can do that to your voice. Doesn't that give you the heebie-jeebies to hear it? East of the Rockies, you're on the air.
Well, hello, Art Bell. How are you?
I'm all right.
This is TJ from Minneapolis.
Yes, sir.
Something I tried, and I've always wondered, I was always going to call and ask if you've tried it yourself. And I'm not talking at your house, I'm talking in a restaurant. Have you ever had cat?
No. I would never have cat.
Not even to try it?
No.
I'm not talking...
That's disgusting. You mean...
No, it's not disgusting.
Yes, it is, too.
No, they serve it in restaurants.
They do not.
They do.
They do not.
It's sauteed in a cream sauce. It's very good.
No, they don't.
Yes, come to Minneapolis.
No, oh, come on.
Come to Minneapolis. You can get it in a restaurant.
Minneapolis cat. What do you have? A little menu choice? Tabby or Persian?
No,
or...
No. It's under a French name. I don't speak French, but...
Le cat.
I don't know. Don't speak French.
I think that's disgusting.
But it's very good.
You actually ate a cat?
I actually ate cat twice. It's very good.
Well, I love cats, and so I think that's absolutely disgusting.
Well, you'd love them even more if you ate them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coast to Coast AM sure sounds great in the middle of the night, but you don't have to be nocturnal to enjoy this amazing show. The Coast Insider is your key to a normal life. For 15 cents a day, you can wake up refreshed knowing that last night's show is waiting for you with podcasting. Listen on your way to work and again on your way home, or listen to one of over 1,000 archived shows from the past 5 years. As a member, you'll have access to our monthly live chat sessions with George Noory and special guests. The Coast Insider Club is a must-have feature for all Coast to Coast AM listeners. Visit coasttocoastam.com to sign up today. You'll sleep like a baby knowing you'll never miss your favorite guests or topics ever again. Remember, a 1-year subscription comes out to only 15 cents a day. Sign up today at coasttocoastam.com. You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from the 17th of May, 1996.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, this is Chris in Wenatchee.
Would you eat a cat?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, me either.
Okay,
disgusting.
I've been sending you some faxes about being immortal.
Oh? Are you immortal?
Yes, I am, and I'd like to state that I never said that I actually changed bodies.
How long have you lived?
About 240 years.
240 years. You sound young now. How old chronologically are you now?
19.
19. Boy, that'd be a good age to stop. 19.
Well, my other name is the Crow.
The Crow.
Yes.
At 19, would you not be trapped eternally by your own hormonal imbalance?
I guess so.
In other words, I recall when I was 19, and boy.
Well, it's kind of hard because, I mean, you feel differently. You feel adult. You feel,
Well, I know, even though you're not. Let me probe a little here. What is it that stopped your aging process, do you think?
Actually, I was shot.
You were shot?
Yeah, and my soul absorbed, I don't know, it felt like an energy, and it sucked. Like, it felt like I was pulling energy away from other people. It's taken me a long time to figure this out, but I've pulled energy from another person, from the people around me, and kept my soul alive, and my physical body actually died, and I'm actually just using the energy from my soul to move my body around.
A wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, I thought that the expression Joe used about DMT was really interesting, especially...
What expression?
How it finds you.
Oh.
Because I was following the Dead in 2003, and I was a part of that scene going coast to coast. And some guy offered me something that looked like sesame seeds, but they were like dark and amberish color. It was quite an experience. But
that's one thing you never do, is give somebody a drug that they're uninformed about. That's about the worst thing. I can't even imagine receiving...
Well, see, there was the whole tour, there was talk about DMT going around, that somebody was divvying it out allegedly. But the real thing that I was...
Yeah, but...
I'm sorry, isn't this after Jerry Garcia was dead? Didn't he die in, like, the 90s?
Yeah, but...
So they kept touring?
Yeah, because if you think about it, Joe, if you go back to the discography, there's the other two guys sung a lot too, just as much as Jerry. But the real point that I wanted to make tonight, to really open your mind up a little bit more, talking about the UFO community and stuff like that, is, I believe that mind-altering substances is a gateway, for us not to only be able to see interdimensional beings and extraterrestrials, but to communicate. But those substances are strong tools used in mind control and ritual abuse. And I'll take my comments off there. Thank you, guys. And I'm humbled to be talking to both together.
All right, thank you very much. So, Joe, what do you think?
Well, I think there's definitely been some experiments for using psychedelic substances for mind control. That's a fact. There's a great documentary called The Net that is actually about the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, and Ted Kaczynski being a part of the Harvard LSD studies. And there was a lot of studies that were done by the military that are well documented, where they were experimenting with LSD on soldiers, try to see what the effects were, and how they could use them to manipulate people's minds and frame and get them to do things that they wanted them to do. The whole idea about Manchurian candidates, those things, those are all real experiments for sure. They definitely have tried to do that before.
Okay, real quickly.
Whether or not they've been successful.
Right. Don, real quickly, you're on with Joe. Hi.
Hey, how's it going? Nice to see you back, Art.
Thank you.
Glad to be here. Joe, I have a UFC question for you, if you could answer that.
Sure.
The guy asked earlier about Ronda Rousey, and it got me wondering. You said it was really special being there, seeing her do that. Out of all the other fighters, fights you've seen, which ones felt the most supernatural? Like you were seeing something special, other than her. What are the top guys that just you felt like you were seeing something epic?
Well, I never got to see Fedor fight in his prime. I would have loved to see that, but I did get to see Anderson fight in his prime. And Anderson Silva, who I think is the greatest of all time, I think he moved like a guy in a video game. He would do things that didn't seem real, like things that were from a movie. In his prime, when he was at the top, he was just spectacular. Like he would have what Lorenzo Fertitta, one of the owners of the UFC, always refers to as the holy S moment, like that every great UFC has at least one holy S moment.
Right.
And Anderson really defined that to me. He was just so incredible when he was at his best.
All right, not a lot of time. Pismo Beach, you're on with Joe. Hi.
Oh my God, am I on the air?
You are.
With my two heroes, I can't believe it. Okay, I have two questions for you. One of them is serious and one of them is silly. The silly one is, what kind of motorcycles do you guys ride? The real question that I'm calling about, and I understand, Joe, if you don't want to talk about it, but I'm still going to ask. Excuse me. News radio was like genius. It was the best thing that ever happened to TV, and I still love it. And when Phil died, my question is, was there any animosity on the set towards Andy Dick? I just said Dick on the radio. It's his name. But was there any of that? Because I know the rumors. I'm sure you do better than any of us do. That's my question.
Oh, you mean the rumors that he got Phil's wife the drugs and that's what led her to... I don't blame anybody for that other than his wife. And even his own wife was on a cocktail of SSRIs and cocaine, and she was probably psychotic at the time. It was a terrible, terrible event. To your first question, I don't ride motorcycles, so...
I don't either. I used to. I learned about gravel and motorcycles. That cured me.
I came close. I took the motorcycle safety courses. I was thinking about buying one, and then two of my friends who had bikes, one got hit by a car and one fell on his bike and hurt themselves real bad. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to sit this one out.
Yeah, I don't blame you a bit. So what does the future hold for you?
More what I'm doing. I really enjoy doing the podcast. I really enjoy doing stand-up comedy. And I really enjoy working for the UFC. I'm very fortunate that I have these things that I enjoy very much as far as, like, my career. I've just been real lucky to be able to do a lot of fun stuff, and it's led me to be able to talk to you, which is one of the highlights.
That's exactly how I feel about what we do. It's fun. I love it. Joe Rogan, man, thank you. And you know what?
Sir.
I may take you up.
Honor.
I may take you up on that offer about the tank.
Please do. The tank and the UFC. Anytime you want. It's an open invitation.
You got it.